Hi
Good
everybody,
evening.
it's Dale Walsh the Duck, Dewey, and J.S. Russell the Con. We're both poets, and we both have a mission to change the world. So I'm not going to like talk too much right now. I'm just going to let Jamar lead us into it. We're in the third stage of his 12-step program. 12-step, right, Jamar?
Not
12.
quite a 12 step, but it's 12 weeks of this workbook.
Well,
So,
you take it away.
yeah.
I'm not
You
going.
know, 12 step, I think the NAA got the
Right,
lock on
right.
that, right? So yeah, so this week, with in the workbook, turning adversity into advantage for a point of change, we are going to focus on the chapter dealing with visualize. For anybody that isn't familiar with this work that we're doing, we first went through Live Love with Dale, with his program, where families learn a live love system that helps support those with schizophrenia. This workbook, turning adversity into advantage from a point of change, is for the incarcerated population to help them prepare for their freedom. So this chapter, visualize, will get into that. But first, for everybody that sees this show or anybody that doesn't know, you have two great poets here. So we always share some of our work. So Dale, would you like to go first, or you want me to start it off?
Uh, well, I seem to go first a lot, but I'll just stay there. And yeah, so today is Three Kings Day. Whenever you're seeing this, it's Three Kings Day, so that's the last day of the Christmas season. So I just decided to art back to a poem that I wrote in basically 2013 called "In Celebration of Christmas Season." And let us worship the anointed baby who represents all humanity may be. Blessed in his sacred Father's sight, who brought into world salvation's light, lying content in simple manger, born into life of mortal danger. From more earthly father, Joseph was wary, about virgin he vowed to marry, not knowing how bride became mother without ever having laid with another. But by Holy Spirit she conceived, so the planet his Savior received. His birth announced by angels divine, who told shepherds all was fine, as they searched for celestial sign, until guiding star rose in the east, stopping over Jesus, protected by beast, and barn where he never wept, while Magi for him vigil kept, giving him treasured gifts of love, when Christ left heavenly square above.
If I ain't know any better, I say you know your Bible.
I swear to take pride in that, Jamar. You know that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you made me switch up with the Christmas theme, right? I'm gonna go ahead and share Christmas in the joint.
Oh, okay, good.
I committed the crime that put me here December 11th. I forfeited my life and took another. The hurt of that mother. Every holiday season. Grieving. I felt shame of knowing I fucked up Christmas for Malia and Elaine. I would no longer be able to spend Christmas with Malia and Elaine. For Slim's people, it would be the same. Maybe worse. Definitely worse. There'd be no calls or letters. Though it's tough, especially for men who got letters. Fighting to put gifts under the Christmas tree. Fighting to be free and experience Christmas with family. Niggas getting high, drunk, and praying. Rarely for celebrating. Mostly to self medicate as a way to escape this incarceration. Sadness, depression, stressing. And we're here for each other because we understand each other. Some folks have lost everything. Some are losing them now and feel the pain. The support thins out over time. You really get to see what people are about over time. And I'm staying out of the way to get through the day. Though this is an occasion to celebrate the birth of Christ, this is a day that can be a devastating revelation of life. God, we pray that you help us get free. That would make this Christmas merry.
Beautiful.
Yeah, unfortunately, in those places, man, the holidays aren't very festive. They're very depressing.
I'm sure.
Um, because you can't be with family. It's definitely a reminder, where you are. Um, a lot of times I know where I was because the staff doing whatever they doing, celebrating with family, is lack of staff, so it may be shut down. So that's less movement. Of course, there's no mail moving, and people look forward to mail circulating because people are trying to put petitions in, trying to put motions in, something that'll help them get back to society or waiting to hear some news or anything. So when the compound shut down because of holidays, man, it's tough. And then it's especially tough for that to have to deal with being in there with, little to anything that you can actually find joy about. Even the little meals that they try to give us, can also be depressing because they'll try to give you a little cake or a pie and a slice of turkey or, something, and it just be like, ain't nothing like at home. So, you know, that's what it is. But speaking,
Two things came to mind about. First was you said today the theme is visualize, and that was a very visual poem that you wrote. I could see things that you were,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and then the second thing was yeah, I was in the hospital a couple of Christmases, and actually we can talk about this now. I just got out. I just like went in. I had a week bookmarked by the hospital, and it was just and that was over New Year's, but it was totally depressing. My old mental unit, it was like totally shut down, and there was absolutely nothing to do.
Hmm.
It was just like all the nurses were like at their mobile station with their screens, and just like looking at the screens. Nobody seemed to really care about the patients.
You was dealing with Christmas in the joint.
Yeah, yeah.
You was dealing with Christmas in the joint, man. Yeah, unfortunately. So, yeah, let's you want to share anything else about that? You know how you felt, what you
Uh,
went through.
well, yeah, basically, it, uh, I don't know how appropriate this is, but this is what the analogy I use is sort of like if you got out after and then after 20 years you went back for like 2 days to the joint. I mean, what happened was I went to the emergency room and I said I want to go up to 6 St. John, which is the mental unit, and they said, okay. And so then they put me in the emergency room, a waiting room, and my blood pressure takes off like the rocket I'm supposedly being to get up to 6 St. John's. So, and at one point it was as high as like 240 over 170, which is like basically stroke material and
Mm.
everything. So, they put me on a medical floor for 3 days. I'd never been on a medical floor basically since the age of 6 when I got my tonsils out. So, that was an interesting experience. And the medical floor was great. You had a TV, your own TV, you had a phone, you could get food as much as you wanted and everything. Then
Okay.
go up to 6 St. John, and there are like 7 people there. There's not even a fountain where people can drink water, Jamar. It's crazy. In order to get something to drink, you have to ask a nurse to go in the kitchen and get you a glass of water. So it was like totally absurd. So I submitted a couple of complaints to Hackensack Hospital and just saying, this is like unacceptable. That this
Mm.
ward is unacceptable for healing. So hopefully something will happen with that. But yeah. So but Yeah, visualizing. Talk about visualizing. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, I was just thinking about everything that you shared, and I was, a lot of things, just have to be looked at as humanitarian issues, man. And I don't even understand, why there would be people that wouldn't just give you the basic things. But I'm about to share the screen dealing with this chapter here. Um, Visualize, right? See
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, if you can make it a little bigger, that would be nice.
Okay, let's see. Let's see how I can make that happen.
Yeah,
How
it's
about
good.
that? How about that? Let me see if I can get things to where it's a little bit bigger. All right. So, visualize. Think about a place where you most desire to be. How does it feel? What does it smell like? What do you hear? Can you close your eyes and visualize it? After you open your eyes, can you describe everything that you thought, felt, heard, or sensed in any other way? Write it down in as much detail as possible. This is the power to create. You've recreated the vision that you created in your mind. I've read on several occasions that this is where it begins for a lot of successful people. I've been putting it into practice myself with the strong belief that it will pay off. I'm not only visualizing that dream location, but I'm also thinking of ways to get there. One of the places that I most desire to be is where the water is blue, there are palm trees, and it seems like the sun is singing. How would I make this possible? I could book a trip to Miami or somewhere in the Caribbean. How will I get there? Of course, I'd have to get out of prison first. Since I have a date, I know that my day will come eventually. However, I want to make it happen a lot sooner. It is this want that makes me get creative and think of ways that can help me get an early release date. Imagination is the act or power of forming a mental image of something not present to the senses or never before wholly perceived in reality, according to Merriam Webster's dictionary. I think it's remarkable as human beings that we have this ability. I just want to make sure that I'm using it properly to obtain my objective. I've gathered information and I'm always on the lookout for the laws or programs that may assist with this. I jot down ideas, share concepts with guys on the same page, and write letters to whomever I believe can help my situation. I never expected this to be easy, so I'm just determined to try various avenues to see where they lead me. My desire is strong. I know because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be spending my time typing this up for a potential audience who I know nothing of. An imagined audience who I imagine this might help because of what I know about being in prison. That's exactly what it takes imagination to serve whatever purpose we choose to accomplish the goals we choose. I know that I will be helping myself by helping others. What do I base this off of? All the stories of the greats. They served humanity. The goal may be to simply get out of prison, but my desire is to do something great with my life and enjoy it. This is why I write. So, with that exercise, the exercise with the visualizing is write your answers to the questions asked in the first paragraph of this chapter and write a detailed description of your vision. Think about a place where you most desire to be. How does it feel? How does it smell? What does it smell like? What do you hear? Can you close your eyes and visualize it? After you open your eyes, can you describe everything that you thought, felt, heard, or sensed in any other way? Write it down in as much detail as possible. So I'm gonna stop sharing and get back to it and just talk about some things like the fact that I wrote that while I was incarcerated and talking about envisioning certain things, right? So this past summer I took a trip to Belize. So I was able to experience the palm trees and sand and water, when the sun, like I described all of those years ago when I wrote that. and it's remarkable reading it now, from knowing that I was in there, not thinking that I'll be here doing
Right.
a podcast with my buddy Dale, talking about things that'll be able to help that audience that I said I imagined that I'm actually out here helping now. Like I was in the jail here, PG County Detention Center in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, just yesterday, working on those exercises in that workbook. So I'm doing the things that I imagined, that I visualized. And so that's the whole thing about the power of not only writing, but actually having these mental images. So what you think about that, Dale?
Well, one thing that just sort of stuck in my mind is imagination, image nation. So,
Mm-hmm.
so basically, that's how you visualize. You just get an image in your mind, and
Mm-hmm.
then you concentrate on it, and you make that your nation. You make that your reality. So, uh, and to tell you the truth, I never like visualize that much, but I know that I'm always like considering realities, like basically possible realities. I'm always considering them and everything. So, but yeah, imagination and visualization are very closely related, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, imagination is more the whole process of that visualization is a part of, but because basically imagination is not only the visualization but also the conception and the implementation.
And so I beg to differ when you say you don't visualize much because I think it takes some of that in your writing when you talk about your sweethearts or different things.
Right.
Like, we very much so visualize when we put these words to paper because even though it may be words, I think it's our ability to convey whatever images that we have in our mind or whatever concept to be able to communicate it. So, and that's the thing that makes it powerful.
Well,
Like,
I agree with you. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not like I don't like actually like have like visual images in
just
my
think
mind.
about, yeah.
I think more in terms of a sonar or oral, like sound images rather than visual.
So it was something, I can't remember where exactly it was, but they say a lot of times in sports, whether it's racing, whether it's playing basketball, running, like some of the athletes will actually go ahead and take that time and practice running through those things, visualizing them. And it helps increase their game when it's time for performance. So that was one of the things why I wanted to incorporate it into the workbook and the writing
Right.
because I was basically taking a lot of the things in which I was learning and suggesting it to the population because you need every type of edge that you can while inside. Like when I was talking about in there about using things and being creative to advocate for my freedom, it's that's pretty much what you got to do. When in those circumstances, the law isn't a guarantee to get you out, right? Time, yeah, eventually, God willing, you don't run it up by catching more tickets. When a ticket in the joint is a fractional, say like they give you, you can catch more charges while you're in prison. Put it that way.
Right.
So those charges would either take back the good conduct credit days or take back days that you may have earned for doing whatever right that you've done or extend your time. So these things can happen while you're in prison. And if you have a very large sentence, you're not necessarily counting on that date. You got to figure out how to chop it down, break it down, whether it be a pill or what have you. Now, for me, seeing multiple guys that either had a 50-year sentence like I did, or a life suspended sentence like I did, or had life plus, a lot of guys had already done 17 to 20 plus years. And so that was one of the things that I didn't want to do. I'm like, I don't want to be in here for 2 decades. How
Right.
do I go about this? How do I make it so that I get out of here, before that? Because with a 50-year sentence, yeah, sure, you might be able to get out there in 20 with, good days and stuff like that. With anything else, a lot of things are going to depend on the parole board, which isn't a guarantee. I mean, with a
Right.
murder conviction, you're definitely looking at, I'm saying, not making it home off of first parole hearing, or with a lot of violent charges. So it's how do I use my talent and abilities to help me advocate for what I want. And so it's one, the visualization, but then it's also analyzing everything and where I'm at to say, how can I stand out?
Right.
How can I do more to show that I'm not just the regular convict, that I'm not just, you know, my crime, I'm not, a mistake that I've done. And so um, it was fueling a desire, right, to be back, to be free again, because having experienced the Bahamas or, you know, the beaches, whether I'm in Miami, and even
Right.
though Jacksonville doesn't have the blue water, it's still a nice beach, Jack's Beaches. And it's like being able to have that amount of freedom, and I like being around the water. It's like, man, I need to experience that again. How can I do that? And it was a way for me to escape from the dismal, situations in which I was at. So that's was just one of the things that I used to practice.
So
So
are you talking about like basically maintaining that vision of the beach with the palm trees while you're sitting in the joint eating shit or what?
that that and anything other than where I was, things that I enjoyed in the outside world, and it's like I said, it becomes difficult when you seeing just concrete and brick and metal around you, and guys that you don't necessarily want to be around, but this is what we have to do. I mean, because we aren't just this, we aren't just the physical form or wherever we're around, and we have the power and capability to shape that. Because now where I'm at is like, wow, compared
Right.
to where I was. If I would have just dwelt on where I was, I may continue to be where I was, but it's looking at something greater, wanting to be somewhere better, you know.
So when you did so you would just like you would do the exercise in prison and basically just like lie on your bed and like and visualize being on the beach with the palm trees and breeze and blue ocean, or would you have like different scenes that you would run your mind through, or what?
A couple things. So, I worked at a shop, which I was actually a lead man, so I had access to a computer. I used to have those images, various images that I would have on screensavers and stuff like that. When I would be in the cell, a lot of times I would have to block out the noise, something that I did at work too. So I had my earbuds. Um, and especially when I was reading, I put on the classical music or something like that and had that. If I could have various images, like I had so many postcards that were sent into me, and the last cell I had a lot of those postcards put on the wall, so it's like I can actually see these various locations, whether it was beaches, whether it was anything, it was better than where I was. So not all of it was just the mental visualization, it was actually being able to see these places,
Right.
and having something else to look at that was better than where I was. And it's remarkable how the mind works and where it can take us. And I feel like this. You know how you were talking about how you went on the sixth floor. It was the sixth floor, right?
Yeah,
And the difference between, when you was just in the regular, you had the food and everything like that. Prison, a lot of times, it's just, I feel like it's inhumane,
right,
and it's like if COs had to, when I say COs, I mean the correctional officers or staff had to live like that for a while, maybe they consider about treating people a little different, you know.
right,
And we're not talking about serial killers, serial rapists, or anybody that is just ready to throw some feces at you or something. That
right,
we talking about general people because it's a lot of people with they may have made a mistake or whatever. It's all human beings. Even the crazy people that I spoke about before are human beings, you
right,
know. And it's still a matter of how do you treat people, and it's not rocket science. They always say with the golden rule, treat people how you
yeah,
want to be treated, or take it a step further and treat people how they want to be treated.
right,
And that helping shape the environment helps a lot. So there's different things that we used to even do on the tier. I after a while started putting up some of my poetry, or guys that did art, that had the permission of whoever it was could
right,
paint things, or do certain things, because a lot of this stuff they just wanted to be this way, that way. So it's so important that we continue to create, to shape our environments,
right.
and it's very, very important for other people to understand the humanity in other folks. When people start judging or getting to where they have their various biases because of stereotypes and prejudices, that gets in the way of people being, treated the right way. So,
Well, even even when with Six St. John, when I was calling the hospital, it's like I got out on Friday. I filed a complaint on Saturday, and they didn't get back to me till today. It's like, well, why the hell not? If it was a medical floor, if it was a medical concern, they probably would have like been right on it probably the same day. But no, because it was Six St. John, then this guy's a mental case, and we don't have to pay attention to him, and that stigma continues, and what really got me annoyed was on the prescription for my medication. It said prescription for psychosis, and it's like, why the hell are they putting I have psychosis on my medication bottle with the pharmacy registry? It's like, and
yeah.
but besides the fact that any pharmacist would know what the medication was for, but beyond that, why do you have to say this is for psychosis? So, and like just stigmatize me that way, for out of the blue for nothing. So the hospital said they weren't responsible for that. They said that I'd have to take that up with the pharmacy, but still, it
Hmm.
took 4 days for them to get back to me, and I don't know. It's because I was so adamant in my criticism or what, but it just that this brings up something else. I was talking about this show to someone who likes following my podcast, and I told him about you, and he says, "Wow, that's really something." A lot of people aren't going to like that, and I said, "Yeah, I guess so, but this is reality."
Hmm. And so what I was hearing is labeling,
Right,
and that's one of the things that gets in the way. If you put some type of putting a person in a category or whatever, when it's more to it than that. Now they just try to put you, oh, this is what that is, and
Right.
put you somewhere because, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Like, you know, if a person could just be typed and you deal with them with that, then you miss treating them or working with them. You missed it. Like I said, you taking out the humanity of the situation. Like, did anybody have the conversation with you about that? No, they just wanted to put you somewhere because that's the group that they wanted to put you with.
Right.
And it's like you had to suffer for that for whatever the time period was. And I had was thinking about this other poem, right?
Okay.
Um, that I think it deals with. I want to say it deals with somewhat to what we're dealing, but it's more so dreaming, right?
Right.
Because I mean, for me, it was the dream of freedom, right? That so this one is called Dreaming Gold. I once wrote, I wake up from my dreams wishing they were reality, waking up to my reality wishing it was a dream. Now I'm seeing I can live my dreams if I just see them. I've received revelation that I can live my dream of being on a yacht in the Mediterranean. Just imagine, fashion my mind around the idea, the feeling, the being, and it can be real. God spoke to me in word and told me that I can use my words, that I can use my thoughts, I can create my ideas. If I believe, He encouraged me to dream, to follow them, to chase them, to make them, as He made all, by imagining and focusing, concentrating, having faith, and working in it with no hesitation. God communicated to me through the words of men, written and spoken. It was all a dream. That's Biggie. I
Yeah.
have a dream. That's Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Men who had what seemed like impossible dreams turned them into cream or landmark events, historic, just by becoming passionate. My passion went into these words, reading them and believing that they can occur. Believing because I've studied and observed about what God gave me. God gave to anyone who believes the power to dream.
Beautiful.
So, with that poem, you could think of a visualization as a daydream,
Right.
you know? And so, just making sure that we making things real, the things that we thought about. How long did it take you to think about uh, coming out of your 50-year demonstration?
About 50 years.
But it happened, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you was in the hot springs, observe, enjoying
Yeah.
all of that, taking a trip.
In the hot springs in Colorado Springs, just
Yeah, yeah.
absorbing the heat and then the cold, and yeah. So I guess what? Oh, I know what I was going to say is something else that we sort of like talk about in passing, but I think it's important to emphasize just the importance of the word and being, in as it says in the four agreements, be impeccable with your
Impeccable
word.
with your word. Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, as poets, we live by our words, and but I think that at this point, one of the great weaknesses of the world is that nobody takes their word seriously anymore.
Hmm. I gotta ask you though, and I want to rewind a little bit. When you were telling somebody about the podcast, what did they say that they wasn't gonna like?
Well, they hadn't seen this podcast. They just seen my other podcast that do Andrew conspiracy. But I just mentioned that your background and what we were doing on the podcast, and he said, "Wow, that's really interesting." But I think a lot of people were maybe sort of like alienated by that. So, Well, that's
Alienated what by me and my background or
I think that's what the implication was,
yeah. And so this is the
but they should be just as alienated by my background too.
or interested. I mean,
Right,
how often do you have a person that's going to openly speak about it, without glorifying the BS, I'm not
right,
going to be talking about, oh yeah, this and street life and all of this other stuff and all of that. I'll talk about the reality. I was sharing that yesterday. I wasn't somebody that I was a fan of carrying a pistol, right? And that may
right,
seem contrary to people that was in the street. And the reason why I wasn't a big fan of it because I looked at it as it's 5 years if I get caught by the police or a lot more time if I used it, you know?
right,
And I had one for my protection, not to go out to do things. But the fact of the matter is they are weapons of destruction.
right,
Like, you know, it's just a matter of it. You having a projectile go with high velocity
right,
to do damage. I was speaking to my lady the other day and was like, man, if you think about it, this is how certain weapons evolved. I said you had people throwing rocks, then you
right,
had people with slingshots, then you had people figure out how to take this stuff and just make it go as fast as possible. Because all it is a little piece of metal, little piece of stone, whatever,
right,
going in. And I'm like, it's primitive. I said it's different than if somebody had some energy and shut you down or shocked you or something like that. But that's pretty much what you have with that. And being conscious of what it can do, it was like, man, I wasn't that type of person. It's just like I just want to go out and hurt somebody. That's not me. So, I mean, it could be one of those things. A person that have their thoughts about, people that commit crime, people that violence and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is, that's not that person all day, every day.
right,
One instance, shouldn't define a person. And, then you have to think about the why. What was the circumstances? As you told us and shared with us, you went to the hospital and they discovered that you had your blood pressure way off the charts.
right,
What did that have to do with anything else that sent you up on the sixth floor?
right, right.
They just took your
That only
background and then
that
made it
only
something.
shows how God's working with us all.
Yeah, like they just took your background and then, put you somewhere and it's just like, what in the world? So, um, glad that you got treated, glad that you healthy, but then you have other people that may have came up in traumatic environments and these things aren't treated because the same environment they have a lot of other young people or other people that's dealing with high levels of trauma, so you don't escape it. So when you dealing with certain things and something happens, that's what it is. In prison, people respect violence. That's the environment. In the streets in certain places, it's the same thing. Then you'll have other people that do a lot of things just out of survival that may be looked down upon by other people. But it's just, this is the world. What can we do to change it? We have to increase awareness, increase creativity, increase humanity, increase uh, the ability to learn how to use the resources around them to improve situations.
Right,
Because if you're not improving the situation, then what are you doing? And like that's why I feel like people have to be invested into. Once a person is exposed to certain things, then they'll know. You know, well, if a person is exposed to a bunch of crime, is it a surprise that they become a criminal? You
right.
know, expose a person to a lot of the right things and see what type of choices they had. You remember Trading Places?
Yeah,
What Yeah, so I mean, let's try that. Put a
Right.
person in an environment where they can flourish and see what happens. You know.
Well, it's just, so uh, that's another thing about mental illness that's sort of like different from prison. I think is that well, it's actually pretty similar, but once you get to once you get to label, whenever people bring up labels, I just remember this billionaire entrepreneur who I followed, who said labels are for shampoo bottles.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but once you get to label, it's very hard to get out of it. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go up to 6 John is to get a reevaluation of my diagnosis because I'm convinced I'm not a schizophrenic. I'm a multiple personality or something else, but um, I've never hallucinated. I've never had like all sorts of schizophrenic symptoms that all the other schizophrenics I know have had. So, but that's neither here nor there. Point is that be impeccable with your word, and your word is really the thing upon which your whole foundation of reality has to be built. And you have to be true to your word rather than just use your word to get by.
And it's the ability to see it. Like when I just mentioned exposure. Had I never been exposed to those places, could I really feel it or see it? Sure, probably maybe from TV or magazine or something like that. But it wouldn't have been the same thing as actually experiencing it. So it's being able to draw from that to pull from that. And even though I've never been to the Mediterranean and jumped off of that, the fact that I used to watch a lot of Below Deck makes me
Right,
want to do that. So it's something else that creates a desire for something better. And it's just going forward with all of that. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on is because you were saying that, what you didn't have as far as the hallucinations and stuff like that, the ability to change the narrative.
right.
So now, because of what you've overcame and been able to do and document this, you know what I'm saying, not only with this but also with your other podcasts and everything that you should, you can show, other people that okay, this is not that, and eventually we'll be creative to change things. Period.
Right.
With our programs, and that's another thing that we can work on visualizing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so it, uh the visualization then I mean you can just like get a word or two in your mind and just keep repeating it. I mean like just I mean one of everybody's favorites is every day I wake up knowing that I will be better than I was than the day before or something like that.
Like affirmations, and I touch on that too, in the workbook, and that's another thing that I learned out here when they talk about positive self talk. Because you will have some people that talk to themselves so poorly, and it was something that I've heard. It was just like um, if you had a friend that talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, would you still be their friend?
Right,
You know
right.
what I'm saying? So it's that type of thing, and that also comes with like we talked about in the four agreements, making your word impeccable. What you say to others, what you say to yourself, like all of this stuff matters because words have power, as well as the imagery. Because with say like with rap, right? You got your gangster rap. It paints a portrait of negative things. Then you may have the videos that go along with it. Then you have certain movies or documentaries. All this stuff that's reinforcing this stuff that isn't positive. It's not necessarily a beautiful thing, but when you go and you dive into all of that, and then your world starts to look like it, what you expect. So that's
Right.
why for me it was more so dealing with beauty, dealing with freedom, dealing with the things that matter of fact, that's Philippians 4:8. I always loved that. I gotta look it up. I'm gonna see what it says, but that's
Okay.
actually something that's commanded. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So yeah, so let me see right here. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And that is the New International Version. But
Okay.
that's one of those things that have basis with that. Like, think on the beautiful things instead of the ugly. And that was a battle for me constantly while I was in prison, is not to dwell on where I was, not to keep complaining or keep talking about what I didn't like, and
Right.
redirect my energy to that which I wanted.
And being aware of how your thoughts are going in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I knew where my thoughts had led me. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was like, well, I got to do something different, you know? You got some more poetry for us, Dale?
I do. Let me see. I got you want to hear a biblical interpretation of reality or reflection on the Christian life?
I want to hear the interpretation.
Okay. A biblical interpretation of reality. One of the great revelations of my youth came when I arrived at the complex truth where old starships fly into the universe while stuck on Earth controlled by Adam's curse, because he broke rule of great deity, from whom he took the fruit from Eve to consume. Although God on his offspring took pity, but still our parents great weight did assume, who were forced to submit to death's demands, thus to return to dust from which they came, so that until Jesus all was the same, and nobody ever saw promised lands, since they could not abide the Lord's laws, so all humanity lives full of flaws.
Absolutely. That's one of the things, man. I something that came to mind. So when we read of course, the original sin and all that, we understand that there's nobody perfect after that except Christ. You also had Enoch that,
Right,
kind of just descended off to heaven and stuff and was great. And you have those that had done well, but there's nobody that's perfect. And so I think sometimes if we just had people to realize, like, look, we all trying to figure this out
right.
here, we wouldn't be as hard on each other or hard on ourselves, really, because I think a lot of people are harder on themselves than they may be on others. So it all
But
depends.
I think that's why the situation is people criticize themselves and then they take that judgment of themselves and they turn it to other people. But
Hmm.
everything's actually a projection of your self feelings. So if you're critical of other people, then you're basically critical of yourself.
And then there's and we go, I'm gonna go back to the image thing, right? Image, imagination. We were made in His image, made of His imagination, and so it's like the way that I look at it, being made of God, by God, then there's certain things that I have the power to do. Because even Jesus said, these things and greater things you shall do.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, greater than walking on water, turning water into wine, and uh, feeding a bunch of people with a little. And, even if it's not in that same right, like people have been doing great things. You know what I'm saying? Not just those type of miracles, but people have been able to, help out folks, through great service or whatever. And it's like, all right, I got the ability, not even if I'm not necessarily taking those things literally, I have the ability to create or do something great here. And I think that also, when we change how we look at ourselves and realize what we're capable of, then we can kind of elevate from just that, just merely existing or being in the way. You know what I mean by being in the way?
Oh
Like
yeah,
folks
definitely.
get in other people's way. Like,
Right.
like stop being a obstruction to progress.
Well, that's something that Andrew and I talk about a lot, and he's really into Christ consciousness and everything. So basically, the idea is that the more every person that achieves Christ consciousness raises the collective consciousness in even higher levels. So basically, yeah, I mean, you said nobody's perfect, and my answer to that, Jamar, is I'm Dale hasn't always been perfect, but I've always been a perfect Dale.
A perfect deal. There you go. There you go. And that's the other thing. Like, we are put here for a reason, and we all have our talents and abilities, our way about it. We never know if it's small job, big job, but there's a ripple effect with all of this.
Right.
Um, you ever seen the movie Butterfly Effect?
I've heard, I know all about the butterfly effect. I never saw a movie or anything, but
Yeah, it was a cool movie though, but it's just how the simplest things alter a whole course of different
right.
things that go afterwards. So it's whether you do something good or bad, there's still many other things that go after that. So I'm more so looking to, like you said, raise the consciousness, improve things to the best of
Well,
my ability.
one thing I realized today is actually, you know, the, I mean, just like I feel I've begun to over 50 years I've begun to realize my potential as a human being in the acceptance of God, but uh, basically when I was coming into my apartment today, it's like, can you imagine if everybody actually like lived up to the program that God or that they co-created with God before they came to Earth? Like, what an amazing place it would be, instead of like just being caught up in the routine of day-to-day 9 to 5 slave master thinking.
That's the whole thing. People get distracted, man. And it is what it is. But it would be amazing if people understood the connection, you know, and weren't afraid to do more. I think a lot of it is fear. When you got everybody doing pretty much the same thing, that's what you think this life is about, And for me, um, because I felt like my life at a point was taken away from me, it's like I'm never going to take this for granted again. And I'm going to live and do things to the best of my ability to increase the value of mine and others, because what do I have to worry about? Like, I felt like
Right.
so much of the bad stuff has already happened to me, so everything is up from here. Like, okay, you take something away from me, money and stuff like that, that's didn't happen before. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
a lot of things have been, so it's like, all right, whatever. But guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna keep on fighting and I'm gonna keep on pushing towards it, because I know what can possibly happen.
Well, That's why I say I'm a multiple personalities. Just today, I was like walking down the street, and it's like sort of like getting tired of walking. And I just say, keep pushing, Dewey, because Dewey loves forced marches, But whatever personality I need to get me to that next
Get
step
you
to keep
going.
going.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really the thing that is key.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. Like I don't I don't take away from any person that I was. Whether me a young person, me in the streets, you know what I'm saying, with various levels it was. It's all a part of me, but it's just taking those experiences and making sure that I'm harnessing it into what I need to do for the right thing. So I mean, hey, and now I need to make sure that I'm visualizing myself on that yacht because that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to get to.
Well, I'll be right there with you, Jomar.
Absolutely, man.
And
Can you
but my
swim?
my dream's always been Hawaii, the other way.
Hawaii? I
Yeah.
don't mind going to Hawaii neither. Um, that was in this beautiful, beautiful place. I think about it, especially when you said Hawaii, it made me think of Robert Kiyosaki.
Right,
Rich
right,
Dad Poor Dad, and he talks about
right,
this. Just imagine you just grow up there, like even with Obama. You know,
right,
grow up in Hawaii, like that's your backyard. This is like that's great. How
right.
bad can your days be? And this was a funny thing that what I realized. So my last time in the Bahamas, I was in Nassau. We had been on a cruise, and so I'm going to use the bathroom. And outside there was this lady, and she's selling her beads. And I was just like, man, looking at the beauty all around me, and I was like, man, I would like to live here. And she was like, why you want to live here? And as she was talking about and I talking to me, I started realizing like, oh, she looks at where I'm at as the land of opportunity. I'm looking at where you at is beautiful.
Right.
That's because you're used to this every day, and you don't really know about all of what you would have to go through. And it's just
Right.
like it was a matter of me understanding and respecting perspectives because I'm like, man, but I don't know what that lady has to go through on a day to day basis, nor does
Right.
she know me. Like, as far as what I was, into or stuff like that in the States. But I think a lot of times people are looking for better, you know?
Well, that's a natural thing, and I mean, there are a lot of times when I said I can do a lot better than Hackensack, but ultimately Hackensack was always the place that gave me a home that I never had. So, I mean, it really is totally a matter of perspective. I mean, whether you're going to be positive or negative, or say live in the past, future, or stay in the present.
hmm Mm. I'm looking forward to the future though, because of the things I visualize.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've told you my 30-second dream.
What was it? Nah, I don't remember that.
My seven bed. I have a 7 bedroom, 7 bath, two kitchen, uh, a seven bedroom, 7 bath, double kitchen, quarter-mile beach, uh, mansion with uh, Tesla, Mercedes coupe, and a Maserati in the 8-car garage on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Well, now all you gotta do is hustle this podcast into
Yeah, yeah.
making you that money. Yeah. But nah, that sounds beautiful, man. Yeah.
Uh, and then we'll take you, and then you can take your yacht around the Cape of Good Hope and come visit me in Hawaii.
Well, I ain't never think about owning a yacht, but I might use somebody else's. you know, just be
Yeah,
able to rent it, man. That's a lot. But hey, who knows? Who knows how all of this goes? Maybe I could have something that I can, rent out to other people.
always trust in the bigger dream, JS.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, how you want to do? You got something to take us out with?
Uh, uh, I'm sure I do. Let me just um let me see. Uh, okay, this is what we'll just see what this is. When you enter my thoughts, the choice is simple: give up my rasteful ways, or risk absolute rejection by the only female who will ultimately matter to me, while I pursue vitality in this myopic existence. When the years slide by like waves upon the sand into the ocean of precarious life, which guarantees nothing but the sunrise at dawn and sunset at dusk, pulling us into the mystery of shy night as the stars show themselves in subtly modest lights of insight into the workings of the world. And there is that's for. Oh, I think I'm going to. I got some money, so I'm going to get some copies of my books made and sent from Amazon. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I gotta work on that myself. So here's one last one since I've been talking about this beach and waves and all this other
right.
stuff. It was actually one of the exercises out of the April 30 poems in 30 days. So this was the 19th prompt. Um, and I don't even know if I know how to say this word right, but it's syn synesthesia.
Synesthesia. Synesthesia.
Synesthesia, yeah. So it was, the concept of using one sense to do pretty much
Right.
describe another something. So I can feel the bright sun, smell the salty mist of the ocean. As the waves crash, I hear the pound of the surf to the earth. I'm in my element, where I like to be in the summer, tasting the charcoal in the air. The savory smell of food on the grill hits my tongue. The music played pushes me into a vibe. I see the warmth. I'm wrapped in happiness. I'm touched by the bright light. The heat dances across the water. I see it paint my daughter, warm in the glow of sunscreen. The scent skims my taste buds. Sun rays kiss my skin. You can see the heat. It's ripe for the cool plunge of a swim.
Very nice.
So with that, I guess we conclude
Uh,
visualization, the third exercise of turning adversity into advantage.
and
This
thank you
is
very much for your program, Jamar. And I hope people will find it. And if you have any comments or any comments on any of either Live Love or Turning Advan if it, uh, tur-
advantage into turning adversity into
why do I
advantage.
always have such trouble with that, Jabbar? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, if you have any comments or subscribe, yeah, we're here to for you. And if you have any questions, just send them, and we'll try to answer them. And Jamar, have a great have a great week, and thanks a lot. And I guess that's bye, everybody.
All right. Take care.